Welcome to RotoWire Fantasy Football Live. We come at you 5 days a week, 11 a.m. Eastern, but you can always catch the replay on RotoWire YouTube. So make sure you're checking that out. Appreciate you being here. So happy I'm part of your daily or weekly fantasy football routine. Remember the start sit stream every Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern. If you want more fantasy football goodness, if you have the Sirius XM Fantasy Sports channel, I am on Saturdays 1 to 3 with Mario Puig, Sundays 9 to 10 with Alan Seslowski. You can always rewind those on the Sirius XM app if you have those. Now I'm also putting up some Twitter threads now, and what I'm doing on the weekends is I just posted one now at Jim Coventry NFL, and what I'm doing is we're taking 4 games at a time, and we're going to put game notes on each of those 4 games for fantasy, for prop betting, and just enjoyment of NFL and how to view games. So right now we'll get the 2 of them up today. We have 1 so far. The next one will go up in the afternoon. We'll get 2 tomorrow morning. So if you missed the start sit, or if you want to enhance the knowledge of players, look through. I try to cover most fantasy relevant players in there. Of course, you can always join the start sit stream for more detailed response, but I do give some game breakdown nuggets there that I think you will like. Now, John Ryan is normally with us on Saturdays for the show, but his grandchild is on the way, and it's it's going to be a baby shower he's at today. So very exciting for John Ryan. I'll give you a couple of his plays, tell you where you can find him later. I'm sure to get a bunch of me today. And at the end of me going through the DFS and the prop bets, I am going to then take any questions. So hang in. If you guys start some questions, I will make sure I answer those at the end. All right, let's get rolling along here. And like I said, John Ryan will be back next week. Now, John does like the Saints at the Colts to go over 43.5. And you can always find him on YouTube at the Predictive Playbook. You get a little more. Della, welcome. Frank, welcome. And anyway, yes. So, and he had John Ryan also has articles at RotoWire. His business website is Predictive Playbook. If that's your deal and you definitely work with John there, you clearly can. John is, as you know, a documented winner. I'm going to do like the normal show. I'm going to give you a prop bet. Then I'm going to give you some DFS, and we'll go back and forth throughout. So first of all, first prop bet, and this is also a DFS play. Breece Hall, his prop is 68.5 yards against the Giants this week. Now, he's had at least 10 carries in 4 games this season, but we do know that they're really taking the restraints off of his workload. We did have a 22 carry game in there, and we definitely know that Breece Hall is going to be a staple of this offense the rest of the season. And look, the offensive line is a mess. Understandable, right? And Joe Tippmann's going to be out here. Elijah Vera Tucker's been done for the season for a couple of weeks now. John Rubright, welcome him. And so very problematic. But look, Breece Hall is one of those running backs. Doesn't matter. He's going to make big plays. The line just has to be like not Tennessee Titans horrible. Basically, their run blocking hasn't been terrible, but you get my point. The New York Giants, it can't be New York Giants horrible. And other than that, then Breece Hall is going to get it done. Now, remember this. Basically, we saw Breece Hall not do well in his last game. They played Philadelphia. Philadelphia's run defense, that's another story. They're number 1 in the league. They are just crushing the run. So Breece Hall had 39 in that game. He also only had 18 yards against the Patriots. But the Patriots game plan to take him away. They weren't worried about Zach Wilson. We know Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick will take away your top option, and he's still very good at that. But otherwise, the last time Breece Hall had an easy matchup, it was against Denver. And he went 22 carries for $179. And I know Denver's a terrible defense, but I don't know that New York Giants are going to be anything that's going to present him any resistance. Still think the linebacker play is problematic for them. And regardless of how this game shakes out, I believe the game script will be positive for running for the Jets the entire way. If the Giants get a lead, I can't see it being a big lead, not against that Jets defense. And so there's a scenario here where Hall gets you a bunch of carries. And remember, the prop is only 68.5 yards. And I think he could get 20 carries in this game, and that's like 3.5 yards a carry. And I don't think the Giants are holding him there. And then finally, in terms of the Giants, the only team without a running back to go over that 68.5 yard prop total was Washington last week. And that run game has been scuffling for about 3 weeks now. And so that was more of a situation. Tony Pollard hit 70 yards, James Conner, $106. I know McCaffrey, he beats everybody, but 85. Kenneth Walker went for 79. Devon Achane, of course, 151. And then James Cook went 14 for 71. All of these running backs went over the 68.5 yard threshold that Breece Hall has. But look, aside from McCaffrey, Breece Hall is better than every one of those running backs, and he's going to get the work. So anyway, that's a great prop. I see it. I mean, I just think this is not the time the second running back's going to go under 70 yards against the Giants. All right, let me give you some DFS plays, which one of them will include Breece Hall. We just went over a quarterback. So Patrick Mahomes is expensive. He's 8,400 at Denver. And we'll look back at that last Denver game he played a couple of weeks ago. The play calling was weird. They got in the red zone. I want to say they had a tight end throw the ball. They had a very, very weird set of plays. I don't know if Andy Reid was just having fun, but it wasn't fun. And Mahomes hit the 300 yards, but finding a passing score, it was tough in that one. So he didn't put up big fantasy numbers there. This time at Denver, they just played them. And any tendencies they had, certainly now that rematch clearly favors Patrick Mahomes. Now, Denver's defense is not going to be as tragically bad as it was early in the season, but they're going to be Kareem Jackson got suspended, having a safety down, and Caden Stearns was out the whole season anyway. So when you're missing a safety against this Kansas City passing attack, that's problematic. Because with the zone you have to play against them, you have to have communication. And Mahomes is going to be able to pick on areas in the middle of the field. And anytime Damari Mathis, the corner, is lined up with somebody, that's a very attackable matchup. And I don't think the pass rush is going to be any issue here. So Patrick Mahomes, you want to spend up, definitely do it. Lamar Jackson's 8,100 at Arizona. And a lot of people are looking at this Baltimore game as a trap game. I don't think so. First of all, I don't think that Baltimore got any especially way up for Detroit. It was a non-conference game. It was, to the public, it was a big game. It was, oh my gosh, these two teams, these could be great teams. Yeah. But look, for years, the Ravens have these games all the time. We've seen them for years play the Chiefs or play the Bills, or their divisional games, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. So they're in big games all the time. That was like not something they were like, oh my God, we got to play the Detroit Lions. No. So I think they come into Arizona. It's a cross-country trip. I do get that. Arizona started out the season, I call them plucky, but they've been exposed. They are what their talent is right now. And I still think that the Baltimore Ravens will be able to do what they want on offense. And Lamar Jackson, despite the numbers last week were great. They hadn't been great prior, but it's waiting to erupt. He is playing at an extremely high level in this offense. The receivers are starting to come around a bit. We're seeing less drops. So spending up on Lamar Jackson makes sense. Now, spending down, GPP only. CJ Stroud is 6,300 at Carolina. The thing with CJ Stroud is, like most quarterbacks, right? When he is protected, he is insanely good. And when he is under pressure, not quite as much. Well, look, you're playing Carolina. Brian Burns, who is their one source of pressure, and it's not an overall great pressure unit as it is, but Burns is like a true game time decision. But even if he plays, Stroud is not going to be under a lot of pressure. The tackles have been holding up very well in pass pro. We thought they would. So that's, Ike Ekwonu and Taylor Moton. They're holding up well enough in pass pro. I'm sorry, wrong team. Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard. I went to the wrong side of the ball here. Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard. They're healthy. And I know Howard was on the injury report. He's off. But those tackles, they're going to be in great shape for CJ Stroud here. So he is not going to see pressure. We're going to get Nico Collins going again. They've had cornerback injuries. Safety's a mess. They've had another, top of my head, I can't remember which one was out, but they're down to safety again. And no Robert Woods here. So I think we see a 12-target game for Nico Collins, but CJ Stroud's a really nice play. Dak Prescott, GPP only, okay? Don't play him in a cash game. We can't trust him in a cash game. But Dak Prescott, 6,100 against the Rams. So the Rams have played well this year. And Byron Young has worked really well with Aaron Donald as a complement for pressure, and they've been getting pressure. But they don't have much else. And I do believe the Dallas offensive line is going to be able to hold up here. And I know Tyron Smith's a game-time decision. They can withstand that. They can definitely withstand that. And I think they're going to be fine here. I think there's going to be, and then once you get past that pass rush, the defensive backs are not good. And that is where you can get the Rams. And I do believe Dallas will be in those optimal situations. And with Tony Pollard getting into space, they also should have some success on the ground here. I think Dallas is a rounded effort offensively, but I think this is one where the passing game really gets going. More than Tony Pollard, I do think it's a big CD Lamb game. Jake Ferguson's getting his targets, not every, but most weeks. I think in the middle of the field, he'll be a nice option there. Brandon Cookson, anyway, we just look back to the quarterback. Overall, I think the aggregate of his weapons, he's a GPP play because this game, Dak can always bust, but this is a game where he could throw for 280 and 3 touchdowns. We could see that. Now, whoever the 49ers quarterback is, maybe it's Brock Purdy, concussion protocol, he practiced and we don't know, 5,600, or Sam Darnold, 4,300. Actually, I'd prefer if Sam Darnold was a quarterback at 4,300. Cincinnati, they have not been the same level of defense they were last year. And I believe that Sam Darnold, we've seen it time and again. We have seen the 49ers bring a quarterback in that hadn't played in that system and does really, really well. It makes it very easy for the quarterback. And I don't think the defensive backs, especially Cheeto Awuzie, is not having a great year at corner for the Bengals. So I do think that Sam Darnold is in play as a very strong GPP option. There's always floor with these guys, but that's the hold your nose one. But I do think that at 4,300, he cashes easily in this one. And, hey, with Joe Burrow back to health, we could see higher scoring than we'd like. But if Brock Purdy is a starter at 5,600, I still think there's some value there. Trent Williams was out last week, and now he hasn't really practiced. So I don't know if he's going to play or not. And that's a little bit of an issue with Trey Hendrickson, but I think they'll be focusing on getting the ball out quickly. Sam Hubbard has not been the level of pass rusher he's been in the past, so I think there's an option there. Running back. So same game, and this would be part of the Darnold Purdy equation. Christian McCaffrey at 9,200. If Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator of Cincinnati, decides to come in with these pressure packages, the outlets are going to be McCaffrey. It's going to be McCaffrey. He's going to get some arrow routes. He's going to get some screens. He is at 9,200. McCaffrey, though, he's the way to break the Cincy defense. They're not going to, Cincy likes to drop people in coverage. And if they do that, McCaffrey's going to do a lot of damage. And so this game, again, this year the scoring's been way down. We don't see many shootouts, but this game could be the one that surprises because the styles make the fight here. Now, GPP play Jonathan Taylor, 6,200 at New Orleans. New Orleans is a really, really tough run defense. Some say lights out. Yes, but the interior offensive line, and I know right tackle Braden Smith is out, so I'm worried about that more for the passing game than the running game, but that interior line is back to blocking at an elite level in the run game. And so this is one why it's a GPP option, because New Orleans is so good against the run. People are going to, there's always downside in that situation, right? But Zach Moss, a true game time decision with an elbow injury. It looks like he's trending toward not playing. I don't believe he practiced all week. Taylor could flirt with 25 touches here. And Jonathan Taylor is each week healthier and healthier. And I think in this tough matchup, I think he still has an opportunity to go off because his blocking is so good. And at 6,200, he's cheap and he gets targets. We've seen him, I want to say 6 targets, maybe 2 weeks ago. He gets targets. And especially with the likelihood Moss is out, Taylor could be your best play on the board for a GPP. And honestly, if Moss is out, I think you could even move Taylor into cash game territory because at 6,200, you don't need a whole lot to cash. And with the volume he would see, and I don't think there's any situation where the Indianapolis Colts want to challenge the pass defense of the New Orleans Saints. I went over Breece Hall in my prop section earlier, so no need to recap the whole situation. But that, again, 5,900 the Giants. GPP only. Now, we don't know what Jerome Ford's status is. He showed up at practice on Friday. Stunning. They said he'd be out 1 to 2 weeks. Shows up at practice. I still want Kareem Hunt in the GPP option here, though, at 5,200 at Seattle. There's no way Ford is near 100%. And Hunt is going to be he's off the injury report. He's going to be more heavily used than he would have been otherwise. He's not the same player he was a few years ago. But again, it's 5,200. Sagar, good morning. But yes, Kareem Hunt should see work in the receiving game, should see enough carries, and of course, he can be used in the red zone. Pierre Strong could mix in if Ford doesn't play, but I think at 5,200 is a GPP play only. Don't play him in cash. Very, very dicey because Seattle against the run, since Bobby Wagner came back, they are a very good run defense. But like I said, you really can catch it in the screen game, and Kareem Hunt can take care of that. Another GPP only play. Jeff Wilson's 4,500 against New England. Now, why is it GPP? Last week, he hardly touched the ball. Now, Mike McDaniel, the coach, made some veiled comments like he'll get some work this week. I think they're going to integrate him much more this week. I think the conditioning, they got him back. Now, it's a GPP play because New England is very good against the run. But New England's game plan. So remember, what does New England do? They game plan to take away top options, and they really sold out to slow Tyreek Hill in that first matchup. And I do think, and also they're going to be preparing for the speed of Mostert in the run game and the way they utilize and weaponize his speed. Jeff Wilson's like a counterpunch to that, and those are the type of players at 4,500 at GPP. He could come through. Now again, the part of the GPP is he gets 2 carries and it's a problem. So that's why you're GPP. You're taking that risk. More on Charlene. Welcome back. All right, let's get you a second pick here. We're going to do another prop bet here. We're going to go with Chris Olave over 57.5 yards against Indianapolis. Yes, we're going back to the well. Yes, we bet him last week. Yes, we lost. He missed by like 5 yards, but he had, I want to say, 15 targets in that game. Not much we could do about that. So, and anyway, everybody's here. Thank you for being here. If you could hit the like and subscribe button, I'd appreciate it. And also, I'll take questions that are in the chat at the end of this show, so hang tight. All right. Anyway, I said Olave had 15 targets last week, and he didn't hit 60 yards. It was the first time all year he was under, I want to say, like 85, 86 yards, and it was just one of those games. It happens. And Derek Carr and him had a little spat. Is what it is. But, otherwise, the 2 weeks where Olave otherwise didn't hit this yardage prop, the first week Derek Carr came back from destroying his shoulder, understandable. And then the Bill Belichick game. Bill Belichick took him away, made him go elsewhere, and that's the way it was. He's seen double-digit targets, Olave, as in every other game. And like I said, last week was the first time in a normal scenario with double-digit targets that he hasn't had 86 yards. This game's in a dome. It's good for Derek Carr. If he's not going to be at home, a dome is the next best thing. Now, Indy is middling in pressure. Ryan Ramczyk, the right tackle, is back. That is also going to help some of the more downfield passing. Last week, Ramczyk was out, and it did cause some issues. Indy is going to be without their defensive tackle, Grover Stewart, who's suspended, and that's going to hurt. He's a run defender, but it also helps their pass pressure because it frees up other people. So realistically, Indy's not going to get much pass rush. Their corners are terrible, and Juju Brents, the rookie, is out. They have no depth. They have nobody. Dallas Flowers has been on the IR. So lead receivers against the Colts. Now, remember, we're talking about Olave has hit 58 yards to cash. Calvin Ridley, 101 and 59. Nico Collins, 146. Now, Zay Flowers was the screen king against them, 48 yards, about 8 catches. Puka Nacua, $163. Hopkins, $140. I left out Amari Cooper in this because PJ Walker was his quarterback. But again, Chris Olave, I mean, most scenarios, he hits at least 80 yards in this game. All right, let's get back to our last DFS plays of the week. We'll give you one more prop, and then we'll take people's questions. Again, John Ryan's not with us today. He is at a baby shower for his first grandchild that's on the way. Very excited for John. What a wonderful time. All right. Look, A.J. Brown is 8,000 at the Commanders. We keep going back to A.J. Brown. It's like 5 games of dominance in a row. And like I said, their offensive coordinator, Brian Johnson, he hasn't figured out a lot of things. But he has figured out if we get A.J. Brown the ball, we're in good shape. And the Washington corners are not good. And the Washington front 4 is quite good, but the Philly offensive line is more than able to hold off and keep them at bay. So, again, A.J. Brown is likely in for another high-volume game. Now, I mentioned earlier Dak Prescott. If you're going to go Dak Prescott in the GPP, you want to come back with CeeDee Lamb, 7,600 against the Rams. The Rams defensive backs are not going to offer much resistance here. I mentioned earlier, I think the Dallas offensive line can hold up to Aaron Donald and Byron Young well enough. And if not, CeeDee Lamb can win underneath and quickly, or he can win at the lines holding up and more developing plays. So I think this is a potential ceiling game for CeeDee Lamb. Now, if you're going to hold your nose and go with the GPP of the 49ers quarterback, and you didn't like McCaffrey and paying up, Brandon Ayuk coming off a down game. Look, Brandon Ayuk had a great first half last week, and whatever happened, they ignored him in the second half of that game. Lost the yardage prop on that one. That was kind of crazy on that. But anyway, Ayuk is 7,000, and Chidobe Awuzie, as I said, is not playing great this year. And we know that there's a lot of zone coverage that we're going to see from Anarumo and the Cincinnati defense. But I think that's exactly what Brandon Ayuk is going to be able to beat here. And even if it's Sam Darnold under the helm, he's going to want to force the ball to Ayuk as much as possible. So that works. And now Garrett Wilson is 6,300 at the Giants. $6,300 is a very low cost. Well, Garrett Wilson has had a brutal schedule this year, and yet he's getting high PPR volume. Well, he finally gets a good matchup here. And the Giants passers, they're going to blitz a lot, but that's going to, what the blitz is going to do, Garrett Wilson is the hot read. And I know Zach Wilson's terrible. I get it, understand. But getting the ball to Garrett Wilson quickly against the blitz, it's going to leave compromised coverage at the second level. This is the week where Garrett Wilson could take one of those catches to the house, maybe even two long ones. So Garrett Wilson, that's more of a GPP play. But 6,300, I mean, but I can make a case for him in cash too, because again, his volume is so high. So T. Higgins is 5,900 at San Francisco. If you want a piece, if you think this game is going to shoot out, again, not many games are this year, but I do see shootout potential here. And T. Higgins is now finally clear of that injury. He's like almost 4 full weeks removed from it. And we saw last time we saw him healthy, he put up 2 touchdowns. And Joe Burrow, here's the big thing. Joe Burrow is going to be healthy for this one. Joe Burrow was looking close right before the bye. Now it's like 13 days beyond. He has to be as close to 100% he's going to get. And San Francisco, look, they have a lot of good pieces on defense, but we're seeing there have been weeks they look like world beaters, but that's not the case every time. And T. Higgins can win on outside coverage. He's, Charvarius Ward is good. He's a good physical corner, but Higgins could beat him. And then there are times he'll be on Diamador Lenoir. That'll be a mismatch. And obviously they have to deal with Jamar Chase. So at 5,900, Higgins is cheap. Nico Collins, 5,500 at Carolina. We talked about him a little bit when we talked about C.J. Stroud. If you're going to take C.J. Stroud in this game, this is the week to go back to Collins because, again, the coverage is horrible. The pass rush is not good in Carolina, and Brian Burns has an elbow injury, and he may not even play. But even if he plays, they're not going to get enough pressure to make it problematic. And remember, no Robert Woods in this game. Tight ends, Logan Thomas, 3,400 against Philly. So the pass rush is going to get there. Sam Darnold's going to be in trouble whenever that happens. When he sees a lot of pressure, he needs the middle of the field. Logan Thomas is still cheap. We go there. Jake Ferguson, if you take Dak Prescott in the GPP, roll him back with Jake Ferguson too at 3,600 against the Rams. He gets 4 to 7 targets in most games. There's nothing scary at all about this matchup. Certainly could find a touchdown. He gets used in the red zone heavily. And then the last one, if you want a punt play, 2,800. Trey McBride home against the Ravens. Zach Ertz is on the IR. Now, it's not a good matchup, but there is a great chance that Baltimore rolls out to a big enough lead and they take their foot off the gas a bit in the second half, and McBride could easily cash in garbage time. So there's that. Finally, the defensive special teams, the Vikings are 2,500 at Green Bay. We usually don't like teams on the road, but what Minnesota does, they blitz a ton and they drop coverage. Well, Jordan Love has been inaccurate on downfield passes. The pressure is the Green Bay offensive line is starting to show cracks. And I believe that blitz is going to cause it some issues. And so this is a great opportunity to play for some sacks, to play for maybe some takeaways, and maybe something leads to a big play and a score. Otherwise, paying to the mid-range, the Texans, 3,300 at Carolina. Again, Bryce Young, rookie quarterback. We're going to be seeing this Texans defense is feisty. They're dialing some things up. I think they can put some confusing looks out there for Bryce Young. And there's a point where Bryce Young's not going to be able to do much with it. So Carolina is going to be vulnerable to the Texans defense, a solid play. All right. Again, if you're enjoying the show, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button. If you give me a follow over at Jim Coventry NFL, I already posted the first of 4 threads with game breakdowns. I have one thread with 4 breakdowns already. We'll do another one today. We'll drop the last 2 tomorrow. Any game, any player, it should be mostly covered in there. You can join me for the start, sit, stream. Otherwise, we're going to do one more prop bet here, and then I'm going to get to all of your questions. So hang with me for another moment. All right. Allen Robinson under 21.5 yards against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, last week, Allen Robinson played a season-low 35 snaps coming out of their bye week with Deontay Johnson back in action. Robinson catches a pass for 7 yards. But even when he was in a regular role playing full-time, he was under 21.5 yards, which is the prop, in 2 of his previous 4 games. So there's that. And in the last 2 games, he went over, before last week's 1 for 7. In the last 2 games where he played a regular role, he had 4 and 5 catches, but he barely went over this 21-yard prop. So basically, he's averaging 6 yards per reception. Jacksonville has been a very strong pass defense this year. And they have gotten burned by alpha receivers and deep threats, but not the Allen Robinson type player. Robinson is a low volume possession guy right now. He would need 3 to 4 catches probably to go over this 21.5 yard prop. right now he's getting phased out of the offense. I don't think the prop market has accounted for the role we saw last week, which is the likely reality. This one probably has a 65% chance of cashing, which is high probability in that case. All right, everybody, let's get to some questions here and see what we've got here. So Frank's Leather Hoyleman. All right, Foreman. Yes. So here's my thought on the backfield. And we can always be wrong, right? But my thought all along was Roschon Johnson was established as the passing down back. And early in the season, Khalil Herbert was the early down back. Now, they both were hurt. But what Foreman was, I believe all along, when Herbert was on the IR for 4 weeks, I believe that Foreman would be the early down back and Roschon would be the passing down back. Now, Roschon's back. Darrington Evans was getting quite a bit of work behind Foreman. So I think that both running backs are going to be involved. But Deontay Foreman is a very, very, very strong play. He's a very good running back, and we can't lose sight of that. And we, even the first week, 15 carries for 65 yards, that was nothing to be ashamed of. They're playing the Chargers here, too. Chargers are not a good run defense, a little better than last year, but a liability. And again, Delaghese, thank you for being here. Good to see you. And John Rubright, appreciate you as well. Sauger, always glad you're here, too. Charlene, I see you have a couple questions. We'll get to those momentarily. Chad. All right. What do I think of Zach Wilson's rushing props? Breece Hall is printing money against that line, but Wilson at 10.5 rushing yards. Yeah. So Zach Wilson. So the thing with Zach Wilson is when he feels pressure, he's good about just tucking and running. I'm wondering, see, the Giants are unpredictable. They're very on and off with their pass rush. There's weeks where Thibodeau doesn't show up, and there's weeks where he looks like the rookie, a second half rookie from last year. He was very good. And so that's the probability part. The rushing prop looks good, but I think this could be a closer game. And I think they're not going to have to get aggressive offensively, and they may not even have to drop Wilson back that far with longer reads. I think it's going to be a lot of run Breece Hall, get Garrett Wilson the ball on, quick hitters. And if that's the case, they may not be in position for Wilson to have a lot of rushing attempts. Now, it only takes one prop. Maybe it could take one run from them to go over. So you definitely have that in the range. If they fall behind at any point, which I don't know if they do, there'd be that as well. This could be the game also if they have a lead where he kneels down at the end. And those would be, if he kneels down 3 times, that'd be like -3. So it's a good call. There'd be a little more risk than I like on that one. Charlene. They're averaging 147 points a game with Jefferson and Montgomery out. You're 6-1. That's a great start to the season. And you'll be getting those guys back sooner, hopefully, than later. I know it doesn't look good for Montgomery this week, but wow, just keep rolling there. Now, you have Charbonnet. Walker is off the injury report. Very weird. DNP on Wednesday, DNP on Thursday. Off the injury report on Friday. Pete Carroll. Love him. So it looks like Walker resumes his usual role. So I think that's the story right now. He's in his usual role. Because I was telling people, they're asking me on Thursday, what do? I go, well, right now, 2 DNPs, we have to be careful with Ken Walker. But right now, it seems like we are business as usual. It sounds like it's preventive maintenance. Charlene, you have to put Tank Dillon. Couple good pieces of news. Carolina doesn't get a lot of pressure. Brian Burns has an elbow injury, and he may not play. Here's a true game decision. But even if he does play, the pressure hasn't been great. And the tackles, Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil, have been definitely giving Stroud a lot of time to throw. So I do think they could have. Now, here's the thing. Houston could have success on the ground and through the air. If they get rolling on the ground, I still think Nico Collins to me is a lock. Not a lock. There's no such thing as a lock. He's a 65% shot of going over his prop. It's a matter of how much they need Dell. You definitely can put him in. He definitely has an advantageous matchup. Robert Woods is out. That could funnel more targets to receivers. We know the middle of the field has been active because you saw Dalton Schultz, the tight end, get an uptick in targets when Dell went out. So I think there's no fear in starting Dell. Just understand, due to the nature of his role, you already know he's got a boom bust nature to his game because of his role. But I think this is as good of a matchup he's going to have. So I think you should be excited about it, having to utilize him this week. John Rubright, Matthew Berry's begging him to pick up Tyjae Spears. Would you drop Javonte Williams for him? So here's the thing. He looks very good, and there's seemingly a good chance that Derrick Henry gets traded. Julius Chestnut is on the IR. It was a hamstring injury preseason. I wonder if he's close to being activated. And I wonder if he does get activated, how much of a role he has. Now, Tyjae Spears, it's always great to be the number 2. Now, I don't know what kind of leagues Matthew Berry's in where Tyjae Spears is on free agency, but it sounds like he is available in your league. Most of my leagues, he's not. He's getting flexed in most of my. He's already a flex play. So certainly his volume goes up. But when you're the number 2 guy, you're to change of pace to Derrick Henry. The defense is playing at that pace where you're looking to deal with the ground and pound run game. And then you have the changeup come in, and the changeup always looks great in relation to the hammer. When he's the focal point of defenses, and believe me, as bad as that passing game is, there's going to be a lot of bodies up front. Tyjae Spears is going to see more volume, and he'll certainly see a bump in value. He should be rostered probably now anyway, if he's not. But dropping Javonte Williams has actually looked the best in the last 2 weeks, in my opinion, as he has any time in his career. When he's been healthy, he's like 4 yards a carry, 4 yards a carry. Been over 5 in 2 straight games. He looks like a better player right now. And I could see him grabbing onto more work as the season goes on. Now, I know he's in a troubling offense, but so would Tyjae Spears be. And also, we don't know how long Ryan Tannehill is going to be out. If Tannehill's out 3-4 weeks, which really could be, he had tightrope surgery on that last year on that ankle, he was done. It was like 3-4 games, but that was the end of the season. He could have been out longer. So again, I don't think I'm dropping Javonte Williams for Tyjae Spears, but if there's somebody on the roster you definitely don't need, then I would do that. But I think Javonte Williams is playing well enough right now where we hang on to him. Sauger. So the Bengals and the 49ers defensively, they did not show up on Monday night. That was my succinct opinion. They just did not show up to play. They were off on their assignments. The cornerback play was weird. Fred Warner just didn't seem to be the usual difference maker. I think they took him lightly. I think they overlooked him. And now we've seen him play great defense, but I think at the end of the day, look, Charvarius Ward's a very good corner, but he's not shutdown or elite. Diamador Lenoir is an okay corner. He's fine enough. But I think in this situation here, we have a healthy Burrow. T. Higgins should be fully healthy, and we got Jamar Chase. The line hasn't been great, but look, the pressure from the 49ers has been spotty. They get some big pressure some weeks, and there's other weeks they just seem to not be bringing it a whole lot. I think Burrow running out of the gun, they're going to continue that here. They're going to try to minimize the pass rush, and I think his outside receivers win enough here. And in terms of winning the game, we haven't had many shootouts this year. It's been a low scoring year. But there's a lot of scenarios where this game can get going. It can get on the fast track. Because the Bengals defensively, they had a couple easier opponents. The Seahawks, they didn't score. They were down in the red zone a bunch. They moved the ball a lot. So some people are saying the Bengals are better the last couple of weeks. They haven't been a good defense this year. And so the 49ers, now, if Trent Williams is out, that hurts them. And I think that gives the Bengals, if Trent Williams misses, that gives them their best shot. Because realistically, having him makes a big difference. The Bengals definitely have a chance in this game. They definitely have a chance. Again, this is one that either team can win it. Both teams have a difficult matchup here. If the 49ers defense plays their A game, they can limit the Bengals. But I think the Bengals still have the upper hand with a healthy Burrow. I think right now he's gonna be 100%. I think so. And Charlene, you had to drop Jameson Williams for Vikings defense last week. Jags are in a bye next week. Yeah, and that's fine. Jameson, Dan Campbell talked about it a little bit, I think, this week too. Just Jameson Williams has a lot of things to figure out to be a viable part of that offense on a regular basis. Snap share is low and it's inconsistent. And you just see he's not figuring out the nuance of the game. He needed a training camp and he was hurt. And that was a big problem for him. So I think that's what we're looking at. We're going to have a problem there. Jameson Williams is a very, very fantastically talented player. But I just think it's going to take him a training camp where he's in there and learning. There's not a lot of learning that goes on during the regular season. The practice reps are in gear, are lined up with a game plan for the next opponent. It's not really a bunch of teaching going on in terms of teaching a player development. That's really not happening. So I think that right now the drop was fine. Uncle Ted, Breece versus Barkley. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. That should be very fun to watch. Ty, more on you as well. So, you just heard me talk about Cincinnati and San Francisco. So, again, this has all been unders this year. I just think this is a game where the healthy Burrow, it's going to drive some things. McCaffrey's going to get it going on. Cincinnati defense hasn't been as good. I think this game could go over the posted total. Again, these games have been weird this year, and defenses have been really figuring some things out. But I could see this game getting on the fast track, and both teams trying to play aggressively to try to keep up. And I could see this game pushing the over here. So I definitely could see that happening. Now, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, to me, an interesting one. And Jacksonville's been very good against the pass. The pass rush is not great, and that's a problem. You want to get Kenny Pickett under pressure. It's, Josh Allen will have the occasional big game pass rushing for Jacksonville, but it's inconsistent. And you can run the ball in Jacksonville. And I think Pittsburgh has to, and Pittsburgh's been getting a little more out of their run game. I know everybody's, understandably down on Najee for fantasy, but Najee, when he has a little room to run, which isn't always, but he's been fine. And Jacksonville just hasn't been putting a ton of points up on the board. And, the run defense is compromised. Cam Hayward's still on IR, and that's going to help Travis Etienne here. But, I think that's more of a slugfest. I think this game is more of a slug. I think Pittsburgh's going to want to run the ball here. I think they're going to want to try to control, and I think they're going to be able to do that a bit. I think they're going to have some success here. The line hasn't been as good as we thought it would be. And Jacksonville, I think, is going to – now, funny enough, this could be – he's not going off, but last week we didn't see Ridley. Well, last week they were playing, the Marshawn Lattimore, and I don't think Trevor Lawrence was even challenging. He didn't waste his time going there. But Pittsburgh, it's gonna be a lot more zone, and I do think Calvin Ridley can get some wins there, so he's better than that. But I think this is a lower scoring game here. In terms of who wins it, this is one I don't want to touch. This is because if the Pittsburgh defense gets rolling here, they could make things very miserable for Trevor Lawrence if TJ Watt, and TJ Watt can overwhelm that line. Anton Harrison at right tackle, he's not ready for that. So if he gets going, he could really disrupt the game. They really would need ETN to get going. I think this is also this is a low scoring game. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of scoring going on in this one. I think this one probably goes under 35 points without much of a problem. In terms of the winner, yeah, I probably wouldn't touch that one because this game could go down to a last possession. And we see Pittsburgh looked decent in the fourth quarter. And obviously looked terrible for 3 quarters. It looked better in the fourth quarter. Sauger, Rams, Cowboys. All right. So the Cowboys I think the Cowboys are going to be in really good shape here because Matthew Stafford, in the current version of him, we saw it in the Cincinnati game, when he's under a lot of pressure, and he didn't have Cooper Kupp in that game. I get it. But he's struggling now. It's not like the Super Bowl year. When he was under pressure, he was like killing the blitz. But Dallas's pressure is going to be a big problem for him. Now, the break point in this game is how quickly can they get the ball out to Kupp and Nakua. And there's merit for that. But Dallas probably knows going in, they're going to be able to press. They're going to be able to press in the defense, and they're going to bring a lot of pressure. I think this is an implosion game for Stafford. This is a road game, a big Dallas home opportunity for them. And I think in the running game, I don't think it's going. The Dallas defense is fast enough where it's going to cause problems for the Darrell Hendersons and the Royce Freemans of the world. So I think if they don't get the run game going and they have to become one-dimensional, it's going to be real problematic. I think the Cowboys steamroll them. And the Rams look really good this year. But I think this is that Matthew Stafford game where you're like, yeah, burn the tape on that one. I see how this was going because I think Micah Parsons, he could attack anywhere on that line, and I don't know they'll have an answer for it. And I think that's where this game. And in Dallas, their offensive line should hold up to Byron Young and Aaron Donald enough to be able to get that passing game rolling here. So I think Dak Prescott has one of his better games here. Eagles Commanders, it's a divisional rematch. I do give the slight advantage in the rematch to the Eagles because the Eagles probably saw some better ways. Because remember, it was a shootout. It was 34-31 overtime game, right? And I think the Eagles probably learned some tendencies of Sam Howell and how to put him in more compromised positions than he's normally in. And I think Howell is that type of quarterback. He's limited, but the less the opponent knows about him, the better off he is. So I think in this case, we're looking at the opportunity where the Eagles could make him miserable. In that run game, now Brian Robinson looked really good earlier in the season. He hasn't looked great. He hasn't looked great the last couple of weeks. I want to say, top of my head, 2.5 yards per carry over the last 3 weeks. And last week, Chris Rodriguez got some carries. And I think that's going to be a problem because if they're not going to be able to run and they have to go pass heavy. And if Philly learned some things, and that was a week 4 game. So it's a closer iteration of what these teams are now. It's one of those close in proximity rematches. So I think the Eagles get a lot more out of it. Now, the Eagles, here's the problem with betting the Eagles. When the Eagles get a lead, they just go, when I think Nate Tice called it, goes anaconda on you. They start running the ball, draining the clock, and they strangle you out. And so depending, the Commanders get a late score, or do you get a backdoor cover? I think the Commanders team total going under. I want to say it's 17.5. I'm very solid on that going under. That's the one, because even if they get a late touchdown, it might not be enough to get to that 17.5 mark. I think that's the best one. I think in the rematch, the Commanders would be hard pressed for the upset, especially since the Eagles were scared by them. They got a scare the last time they played. And then Charlene, yep. Oh, good. Now we did talk about the Dallas LA game. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one too. I think that's gonna be a good one. And then Najee, Najee is rolling. And the thing is, he just doesn't get enough passing down opportunities. And I'm glad he's rolling. And I was kind of hoping that would happen. And because he's been great in broken tackle rate and yards after contact, he's been phenomenal. But when he's in the game, defenses are playing run and he's seeing heavier fronts. Whereas then Jaylen Warren comes in and the teams are playing nickel and dime. Oh, plenty of room to run. Jaylen Warren's a superstar. Fine, whatever. But the thing is, he's seeing light boxes like almost all the time. Najee looks great. And it's just a matter of volume with him. And I know he's got like 16 carries, but those targets are really what jack up your fantasy. And I think he had a catch last week by the top of my head. But if he gets a couple more targets, it'd be even better. But yeah, I think Najee's fine. Right now, he's an RB2. That's what he is. And if there's a world where he can get himself into more usage, then that works out well. And then Darrell Henderson, last week he caught us off guard, I think. He was off the street, playing off the street, and then he came in and he had, a fairly big game. I think this Dallas defense is going to be problematic. And because Dallas' defense plays fast. And I think that's going to be a problem for Henderson here. Henderson, the thought was he was in for pass pro. They're going to need him in pass pro in this game. And because Dallas is bringing heat. And when Dallas is bringing heat, even if they bring it on early downs, that could also serve as a run beater too. And I don't know if Henderson coming off a week where he played like off the street, my guess is he has to be more beat up. You see, when you're not like in game shape, you can come out like 1 week and play, and then the next week you might have really taken a pounding in that game, and you may not. The recovery from that takes time. You take hits during practices and camp to get you ready in condition for the hits and that. So Henderson this week, I see him as a low end RB2. I might say 12 carries for 38 yards, might get a catch, 30% chance of scoring or falling in the end zone. So there's that. So, fine enough if you need them. No teams on bye, not a lot of running back injuries. So hopefully you're able to do that. Sauger, of course, you're welcome. Appreciate you. Come back tomorrow, Sunday, the start sit stream, 11 a.m. Eastern. I'll go over your start sit questions, get you all ready for week 8. Remember, posting threads. Right now, I put up one this morning at Jim Coventry NFL. Please give me a follow and set these up. First one, I give 4 game breakdowns. Basically, they're good for gambling. They're good for fantasy. They're good for props. Giving you just enough detail to get by, and then I'll do another 4-game thread. I'll put that up later today. We'll do the last 2 4-game threads. We'll do those on Sunday morning. They'll be up in plenty of time, so you have them, check them out before kickoff when you're setting your lineups or making your bets and getting that going. Anyway, thank you for hanging with me. I really appreciate you making me part of your fantasy football routine. Sirius XM, if you have that, 1 to 3 Eastern today with Mario Puig. Sunday, 9 to 10 Eastern with Alan Soslowski. And look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow on the live stream starts it. Have a wonderful day, everybody.